Hey there, this is Mike from Mac Digital Media. I have another post-production workflow tip for you today, and this is in regards to dealing with stock footage. Typically, when you're working with stock footage in a sequence or in a project, you start off with the low-res version of that footage first. And the reason you do that is so that you don't spend a fortune coming up with footage, putting it in your sequence, and then have the client say, I don't like any of those shots, or I don't like this shot, or I want this, I want a different shot for this, that type of thing. Obviously, you don't want that to happen. It's very time consuming and it's very expensive to do that. So typically, you start off with low res footage. Sometimes they're called comps. You can pull them down from stock footage sites, and you essentially take those lower res images and smaller size images, and you cut those into your sequence. Okay, so you build your sequence, you've got all this footage, and then once you do finally get the approval from the client or yourself or whatever the situation is, you are able to then cut that footage, the final res footage, back into your sequence. This is fine if you're dealing with just footage that is the stock footage that's moving video or film. That's no problem. Okay. Sorry. You would go ahead and either you could say set to frame size or you could say scale for frame size. In this case, when you're working with this low res type of footage, you're going to get the same result no matter what you do. Okay, that's set to frame size, and this is scale to frame size. Same thing, no problem. It's just when you come to dealing with stock photos or stock video that you add keyframe defects to, that's when you potentially run into a problem when you have to cut in the final high res footage later on down the line. Obviously, you don't want to have to create keyframe defects and then have to recreate those keyframe defects now that the footage is much bigger. Okay, so this is why it's critical to pick the right choice when you scale up this footage to work with it. Okay, so if you're doing keyframe defects, this is what you have to do. Do not choose set to frame size. This is what happens if you go set to frame size. Okay, I had my footage. This is the temp comp stuff. I bring it in. I say set to frame size in that case. I went ahead and I add some keyframes to it to show you an effect. Okay, so we have an effect right here. And okay, that's our effect. Now what happens when we add our full res final footage, the high res footage, what happens when we apply that same keyframe effect to it? What happens? Well, this is what happens. If you say set to set to frame size, it's huge and obviously you can't use it. Okay, you're not going to be able, now you're going to have to recreate this move again. It's going to be very time consuming. So what you have to do to start off with when you're scaling up this footage to full size, what you have to do is instead choose scale to frame size. Okay, scale to frame size. You'll take your original footage here, and now I did the same thing. I use this time scale to frame size. Okay, and now I have the similar kind of move on it. Okay, so I cut in this into my sequence. I do all my different moves on my footage with the scale to frame size selected, and now I'm putting in my final high res footage. Okay, so I start with, here's my final high res footage. This is what I'm using. So now when I have to go and I have to replace all this high res footage from the original moves, you can either say copy it right here, you can copy it per clip, or what's actually a faster workflow is if you go and just copy your sequence and then now take all your high res footage and you use a replace edit and you go into every single clip, you replace edit, it doesn't blow away any of your keyframes, and you've essentially up-resed all those shots without affecting the keyframes. But for the sake of this example, I'll show you as we try to just copy and paste. Here's my high-res footage. I have to say scale to frame size. Now it blows it up. Okay, now I'm going to add the same keyframes that I had in my low-res version just to show you. Again, just copy, and now I'm going to paste those attributes into this high-res footage. And now we have the move. The same move as we did before. It's in the right place. It starts in the right place. That's the old version. That's the low-res version. Here's the high-res version. So there you go. That's a quick way. Hopefully I said it fast enough. Sorry it was a long video, but I just wanted to show you the difference between the two. Be sure you use the scale to frame size option when you're doing any kind of stock footage that has keyframes, or you even might even think that you're going to have keyframes later. Be sure to use the scale to frame size option. You'll be so happy you did when you have to finally cut in the final footage. Anyway, I hope that helps you, and if you have any questions or comments, if you want to throw them in there, hopefully you were able to glean some things out of this, and best of luck with your next project, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.